Welcome to Talk to Brazil with Tom Rioch, the business connector to business in Brazil. Talk to Brazil is a leading business podcast, talks with business experts throughout the world. I'm Tom Rioch, an American known as the King of Networking, connecting people from my studio in Brazil. Today's guest joining us from Sao Paulo is Daniel Bland, a business insight specialist, corporate communication in the Americas, and founder of Fleet Mobility Today. So Daniel, as an analyst and writer providing in-depth business news, tell us about Fleet Mobility Today as a communication channel for corporate fleet and mobility management.
Okay, well, hello, Tom. So first of all, thank you. It's great to be here again on Talk to Brazil. Well, I guess Fleet Mobility Today it's like you said, it's a communication channel. And what we do is publish fleet and mobility insight in the Americas and basically focus on the B2B market. Mm-hmm. So mainly on the larger countries. You know, there are a lot of countries in America. So United States, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and maybe Chile and a couple other countries. Mm-hmm. So we support, of course, by disseminating information with video and also written material and audio. So audio is coming up soon. And our goal, I don't know, what I want to do is I seek to reach fleet managers that deal with corporate fleet. You know, they got managers that operate 100 cars, 1,000 cars, 5,000 cars, but also the supplier of these cars.
Right.
So they could be automakers, maybe leasing companies, and then, you know, the suppliers, other companies that have other products and services that are related to fleet and mobility. So right now I'm kind of focusing more on video with we have the snapshots and the expert talks and then the charla con amigos. Mm-hmm. The snapshots. Yeah, the last one is in Spanish. So charla con amigos is chat with friends. Kind of like what Tom does here. He chats with friends and business people. So for the snapshots, I just focus on like a specific country. Could be, the first one was about the United States, and I talk a little bit about, it's a little video clip, talk about the economy of the country, the fleet profile, maybe the energy matrix, the pricing of energy in that country. So that's the snapshots, and it gives people an idea of, kind of a profile of a specific country. Then the other one is expert talks. So it's kind of like what Tom is doing here, where I interview someone. It's like maybe a vehicle procurement expert, maybe a fleet manager, right? Or like I said, maybe someone that's supplying cars or other products and services. And then the last one, which is charla con amigos, means chat with friends. It's almost the same thing, but it's in Spanish and it's done out of Mexico with a colleague of mine, and his name is Jaime Bringas.
When you look out into these countries, Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, and Chile, less the United States, I'd say the Spanish-speaking and Brazil, there's a lot in common. Are fleets, is there a commonality amongst fleets and fleet management? So I know here in Brazil we have large fleets. You have the energy companies, you have the telephone companies. They have huge fleets of cars. Is that typical in these other countries?
Yeah, the fleets are pretty huge. I would say if you compare to North America, in Latin America, they are more focused on benefit cars. Mm. So if you have like an executive, or maybe not even executive, like a salesperson or maybe someone that's like, basically the benefit cars, there are more in Latin America than like we would see like in North America or United States.
Right.
Because in the United States, we have the capacity, we can just get the cars a little bit more accessible, and, we have a salary a bit higher, so we can just buy our own cars. So people like the benefit cars in Latin America. So it's like it's something interesting that's an addition to your salary. And so as I work also with the leasing of these vehicles, I guess the difference would be like the Mexico, they kind of follow the same type of leasing model as they have in the United States, which is kind of like an open-end leasing where you have more flexibility at the end of the contract to maybe buy the car, but then you take on more risk of the residual value. So it's a different type of model. So but that's in Mexico. So the rest of the Latin America, I guess they would follow more like the European model. So the terms are more fixed, and then also who assumes the residual risk would be the lessor or the company that's leasing the car, not the company that's the lessor, meaning like, like here in Brazil be Localiza, and the United States would be, I don't know, Hertz Rent a Car, something like that. That company would take on the risk. So that's for the rest of South America, south of Mexico, including South America and Brazil. Yeah.
And when we get to the manufacturers, obviously the manufacturers of automobiles, they're keenly interested in fleets. So besides making the car, they want to make a car that's acceptable to the fleets.
Yes, you're saying that that they're focused on the fleets as well as to the regular consumer, right?
Right. Take Localiza, for example. Just using that as an example, or Hertz. Recently, in taking Hertz as an example in the States, they obviously they were one of the first to use the electric vehicles, and now they've decided to give them all back because they felt that there was a resale value to drop. So there's interest because they're leading with thousands of automobiles. So one thing is the purchase and how you purchase it. The second thing would be maintenance and how you keep it going. And then the third, what you mentioned, is a resale value. What's the after sale value of any car?
Yeah. So when you're dealing with the corporate fleet, of course, you need to consider the resale value. And like you said, Hertz, I believe they're selling off about 20,000 vehicles. They bought a huge amount from Tesla. And I think in general, like what's happening maybe in the United States, around the world, is that the electric transition fever, hit, but it's maybe not as good as they think. It's, I'm not against it. They're interesting vehicles, but they are set. So like Hertz is selling them off. So you need to, think about the residual value because for the electric cars, in general, they lose value more than a combustion engine vehicle, because you got new technologies coming out, new battery technologies. So this is something that you have to consider in your purchase price. And besides, they are more expensive up front. Of course, when you operate them, the cost to drive per mile or per kilometer is less. They have much less parts inside the car, so less maintenance. So we don't have to put oil in the car and stuff like that, except for transmission oil. So this is something that you have to consider for a corporate fleet.
Well, I think the last time I interviewed you was several years ago, and one of the points we talked about at that time, when electrical vehicles were coming out. But in today's world, talking 2024, for a fleet manager, it's more complex than it was 5 years ago. There are more variables amongst the purchase, the type of vehicle, let's say the shelf life of a vehicle, the operational part. So their job's not easier, is it?
Yeah, they're becoming like mobility managers. I don't know, because a lot of the younger generation, maybe they don't even care as much as I do to have a car. So maybe they'll just take a Uber or Lyft or whatever, something like that. So it's more complex. They have more things they need to think about. And with the onset of electrification, a lot of them, they don't understand all the aspects of it in the United States as well, but even maybe more so in Latin America, which is a little bit behind. So more complexity involved.
Well, in Brazil, for example, we've seen massive, I'm saying recently, massive amounts of investment by the automobile manufacturers. And what I've seen in several of these announcements, they're not necessarily focusing on increasing production. Many of them seem to be focused on research and development and innovation. So is that changing the ball game?
Yeah, so you need to do research and development on electrified vehicles. And like you said, in Brazil, we got Stellantis boasting about 30 billion reais in investment, Toyota with 11 billion reais. So if you're outside Brazil, you divide that by 5 to get an idea of what it is in dollars, more or less 5. And not only electrified cars, but coming up, maybe not in Latin America that much, but we have autonomous vehicles. So you need to do a lot of research and of that taking place. More so up north in the United States, we have like in California, we have companies like Waymo. You can like get a car and there's no driver in the car. It just picks you up. And so, um, and that, then, yeah, you have to, I think people are getting more used to that. Maybe some people are a little concerned about that, but in reality that you might have like a human driver that would drive worse than an autonomous car if they're having problems with their spouse or something like that.
Right. But to the fleet manager here throughout Latin America, they're in charge of all of that. Their thinking process takes everything into account.
They're in charge of the. Sorry, what do you mean? Charge of what?
The acquisition of the vehicle, the maintenance. So they're the boss for the vehicle once they decide to buy it, and a fleet.
Yeah, it depends how they can take care of everything, or they can outsource part of it. Mm-hmm. So either they can buy the cars outright and they manage everything in house within the company, or maybe they might they want to focus more on their on their main job, or the company's core business, and then outsource it to like a leasing company, and then they would take care of the maintenance for them, and for a fee. Lots of time the fee is reasonable, but it really depends on the company and how they want to deal with their management.
So again, that's a business decision. So a fleet manager is part of the business decisions of any corporation.
Yes, the business decision, and also in Latin America, they deal a lot with the human resources, mm-hmm. and because it's related to vehicle benefits.
Right. And I think that's the change, because historically, when you're talking about the benefit car, that decision sort of resided in the human resource, right? And obviously the financial part of corporations. But when you're talking of the hardcore management of vehicles that are service-oriented and not benefit-oriented, that could change within an organization, right?
Yeah, so the service, like you're saying, like maybe like a person that has like a truck that does maintenance, maybe on the light poles or something like that.
Right.
That's the other side. That's not the benefit side. And usually with this one, you need to focus more on. This is related to the how the company makes money. So it's a different. You need to like. I'm thinking about pricing of the vehicles. They need to be the right price. We like, if you're like a CEO of a company, maybe you'll buy a more expensive car. But if you're related to the business operations, you have to keep this in mind,
right,
about buying a cost-effective vehicle.
But it's a business decision either way.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, Daniel, what are your expectations for fleet mobility today? What can our listeners and what can your viewers and persons coming to your site expect?
Okay, well, I told you about the videos that we got taking place.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, besides that, I've been writing for a long time, so I write articles as well, and we have a newsletter that goes out twice a month. And we have almost 5,000 subscribers. I think it's about 4,900. Mm-hmm. So they can expect that. They can receive that in their email. So that's interesting. But for the future, I got some other stuff too. Like as we work at Fleet Managers, I'm working on. Actually, I already have educational courses, but I'll probably expand more upon that as the year goes on. Mm-hmm. And the first one is related to, because I also, work with English. Yeah. So It's an English course specifically for fleet and mobility players. So, and then, so we talk about industry topics, but also it's kind of focused on those who are maybe not that good in English.
Right.
So that they can improve in English, but also in the, in the fleet and mobility industry, so that they can, compete better on a global market, like a global fleet manager. So that's what I want to do to help, like maybe people in Latin America or maybe in Brazil, where I am at. And besides that, also in the pipeline, I want to do something like what you're doing, like kind of like a radio program. Maybe that would be interesting, but I need to figure out how to do that. Maybe.
Well,
but
it's all a
that would
start.
be interesting.
I know, and generating what you are is a content generation person. And what we do is generate content.
And then eventually some corporate events. So that's nice to get people to come together and meet each other. So that's another thing. So, but that's I'll let everybody know as the months go by, see what's happening with that.
So how can our listeners find you?
So you can find me on I'm very active on LinkedIn. So I have a company website, Fleet Mobility Today website on LinkedIn, or under my own name, Daniel Bland. Then of course our new website. The website just launched like a week ago. So it's fleetmobilitytoday.com. So I guess those are the main places.
Very good.
And I don't know. I'll probably meet up with people as the months go by.
Very good. Well, thanks for being with us. I want to congratulate you on what you're doing and success.
Okay, thank you for having me again, Tom. Good to be here.
My pleasure. Okay. And again, for our listeners, you can find more about Daniel Bland. It's Daniel, the last name Bland. Find him on LinkedIn and his site, which is fleetmobilitytoday.com. fleetmobilitytoday.com. Talk to Brazil is brought to us by Focus MI Market Intelligence. Focus MI specializes in market research for the Brazilian agricultural market. More about them on their site, which is focusmi.com. Remember, when you talk to Tom, you talk to the world. Goodbye, and thanks for listening. Thanks for listening to Tom Rioch on Talk to Brazil, the business connector to Brazil.